What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we have an EX-02 tier list. So let's dive into this video and talk about it, shall we? So you know me, I usually do color coding and everything like that. So we're diving into EX-02, which is the Digital Hazard. This set brought in a lot of new stuff, better than EX-01, with the Machine Dramon really only being the real deck to come out in a Rising, and then all blue decks getting Ice Wall. That was about it. And then some support cards for certain decks, but that's crazy. This time we have many decks to cover, so let's dive right into it, shall we? First off, I'm going to talk about Jessamon in the color red. Sadly, with the limitations it got hit with, and the best of 3 format, I think it's a tier 2 deck. It doesn't hold that 1.5 strength it used to, and it's just going to keep holding itself back because in a best of 3 format, you don't, like in Japan, majorly what pulled that deck ahead was you only had to do the trick once. Any OTK deck having to pull off the same trick once or twice is more than once is really difficult for that deck to achieve. So we're going to put it in tier 2. It might even slide down to tier 3 and be T9. We'll have to see. Agumons, really interestingly, is a very solid deck and a contender at best. I feel like its shining days isn't there right now, but it still can do some nutty things, and it still has some potential and can crazily pull ahead. So something to just keep an eye out on. But we do have Emperor Greymon Red Hybrid still being one of those better decks, because the thing about Red Hybrid is it can multi-security check, and it really counters Yellow Hybrid really well. It's a very solid choice. The only downside is it does have some bad matchups here and there. There's nothing too crazily that gets it out of the way, but there are some matchups that it just struggles a little bit with. So just something to keep in thought and idea behind when you're trying to build that deck. Next, let's see. We do have Black War Greymon, definitely a little bit better in the 1.5 category. It's definitely fallen out of favor because even with its representation, it struggles a little bit in this format. It does struggle to the point where the opponent's oppositions are just a little bit better. It does have some good matchups, but then it still has some terrible matchups. It's really brickfesty. Even with all the searchers and stuff like that, if you don't see anything, you're kind of screwed. This deck is one of those decks that represented you need to have Mulligan for this deck to be really good. So it's just something to keep an eye out on and just something to think about. Then we have Yellow Red Hybrid. So this deck is basically using red and Gallantmon and Guillemons and stuff like that to draw a bunch of stuff. Cycle in, just be very much of a powerhouse annoyance. Has a little more removal than just a one of target removal. It has wide border removal. I feel like it's still a really good deck. I don't know if it's there yet in the 1 category, but it's very high 1.5. So that's kind of where I'm going to have it sit there. I think that's a really good, solid contender right there. I think it'll just sit perfectly where it needs to be. So let's dive into blue. Gabumons with Leomon support, I'm going to be quite honest with you, really good. The reason why I'm going to say this now is because it gained some nice traction in the form of Leomon being able to come out with a Jerry, become a blocker. If it dies, congratulations, that blocker now gained you 2 memory. Now it pushes back to your side. Just crazy shenanigans can happen. And then with the new plugins, the red plugin now in a way without having to rely heavily on Lightning Joust. Now you have ways of multi-security checking very easily without the restriction of needing to play red because of the, the Tamer requirement on the plugins, if I remember correctly. So definitely 1.5 category, it definitely relies on being. Next, Blue Hybrid definitely has been still seeing competitive play. I think it's really solid right now. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's got good matchups, then it's got bad matchups. It still is a deck to be reckoned with. I think it's going to stick around for this format, but next format, it gets outclassed by the fact of OTK decks, and that'll be probably what kills this deck completely. Next, we do have Armor Rush variants. I feel like Armor Rush is right about here, so that it's really solid. I mean, next set, definitely a tier 1 category because of that Magnamon X is just really what pulls that deck ahead. It gives it finally the top end that it needed, and just everything that you wanted for that deck. So it's just really good to have this. I think it's a 1.5 category. It's really solid. I don't see it ending going anywhere. Next, we do have Blue Hybrid, Blue Imperial Dramon. Blue Imperial Dramon is still just one of those decks that just outpace and outcategorize a lot of plays. It's just super strong, super consistent. Jamming is just really powerful. It's one of those things that really can't be countered. I mean, taking out Digimon in battle through your security is what really just sets the tides back into your favor. But with the jamming effects, you're kind of now losing that opportune moment. So just one of those decks that definitely tier 1. Next, we do have basically what be similar to Armor Rush, but this one relies heavily on the Sakuya Chimeramon package. This actually topped an event, got in top 8, so it's not a bad deck. I think it's a 1.5 category, low end 1.5. It can do crazy nutty things when your opponent doesn't know what's going on with it, but outside of that, it's just really good there. One thing I forgot, we have Labramon in this set, especially with the Leomons here getting added in here. The Labramons actually do help a little bit with that consistent memory gain and stuff like that. So if you swing with jamming, the Labramon gets you at least memory gain that can get you the win that you need. So just keep that in mind in the back of your head. That's how you're going to be just probably playing that deck. Let's see. That was all of blue. Now move on to yellow. Of course, we have Queen Bee herself, Yellow Hybrid. Boy, oh boy, that deck ain't going to die anytime soon. The thing that's going to kill that deck is a stake through the heart, I swear. She's a vampire that's a blood-sucking leech on this format. Definitely need to kill her off. I think it's one of those decks that needs to go. But we'll have to see when they decide to ban it. I mean, or hit it in some way, shape, or form. I play the deck personally, and I feel like, yes, at times it has counter ability, but there's just not enough counters for the way it's played. Recovery is just way too strong for the climb up. So just things we need to think about. Then we have security control actually is another option. This deck is showing purple, yellow. Security control is definitely a deck to be reckoned with. The deck is just doing what it needs. Yellow, it doesn't use any yellow hybrid at all. Uses like Angemons and stuff like that. Just ways of recovering and then just punishing your opponent, doing crazy nifty things. And then you just go to town from there. Your opponent just has to answer a lot of your stuff. Your security is really strong. And it's just a tough deck to beat. So it's just one of those decks that you guys need to keep an eye out. Feel like having more security options or recovery, we're going to start seeing decks that are just straight up counters for it. But hopefully we see that soon. Oh, Jesus. I forgot about Gallantmon. Wow, I feel bad. Gallantmon, let's be honest here. I think Gallantmon is about here. It's got some power behind it. It's a hard hitter. It's a strong deck. But I feel like there's still needs time for development with it. It needs its BT9 support, its X antibody support to really push it ahead. I just feel like right now it's in this developmental stage. So that's kind of where I see it. Another 1.5 deck. I want to say 1.5. Yeah, we're going to say down here. Sakuyamon's really good, especially because it tries to control the board wide-wise, and every 2 option you use is basically minus DP to something. So the more and more you get to use it, you have Rikia that lets you play them for free. So, I mean, it just... Rukia, not Rikia. Rukia lets you play it for free. So there's potential in the deck. I just feel like it's going to be one of those left curves for the first couple tournaments, and then everybody's just going to know how to play around her. But But outside of that, nothing too crazy. Moving on to green. Green Gotcha, I still feel like this card deck can still do some crazy things. Shivamon didn't slow it down. Definitely added some stuff into it. Very powerful all-around support. So just keep that in mind. That's just what you want to do. Green Shivamon here is just straight up tier 2. Just too many good decks in the format that just punish it. Yellow Hybrid, its strongest matchup is just pounding it in the face because Yellow Rapidmon just goes like, I suspend this, get this out of my face, get it out of here. That is kind of what you're dealing with that kind of thing. So it's just something you got to watch out for. Another one, I think green, just all in all, just keeps getting slapped in the face with support. I mean, Gargamon, Mega Gargamon, really powerful card, very control-oriented, but it needs the right setup, the right conditioning. It's going to suffer from like stuff like similar to Black War Greymon, but it is green too on top of it. We can give it as much support as you want, but green is always going to fall backhanded to tactics that it just can't handle or answer because it doesn't have the outs yet. And that's kind of where it just lies and falls on its face for. So I feel like that's where this is going to sit. D-Brigade is tier 2 right now. But next set, when it gets Dexmon, it gets the Kunkango, the 2-drop option that negates recovery. This deck is going to be explosive because options, it's just another security control deck with a wide presence, and it just keeps swinging in and swinging in and swinging in, punishing your opponent heavily, just doing things that your opponent just does not want you to do. Next, let's talk about it. X Antibody. Very solid deck. I feel like it's a little bit better than Black War Greymon, but at the same time, it's just one of those decks that it will struggle in the format. It's when it goes off, it goes off. When it doesn't, you're screwed. I'm just going to be straight honest with you. There's nothing you can do about that. I feel like that's kind of where this deck's sitting. But all in all, really solid there. I feel like that's a good turning point. Next, we do have Machine Dramon. Machine Dramon fell to tier 3 for right now. Just too many decks do too much stuff for it to keep up. It just needs its... Give it EX-03, and I think this deck is just going to go off. It's got a new Megandramon, you know... I mean, it got a new Chaos Dramon. It just got a lot of new support, all in all. Just great stuff to go around. Justimon, I feel like tier 2 for right now. I want to give it tier 1.5 status, but I feel like it's high tier 2. It has so many options and variables, but it's another OTK deck, and it's suffering for like Jesmon's problems, but it's better than Jesmon. Just the way it activates and does its things. I just feel like that's where it's going to stay and sit. So I feel like that's where we're going to see this coming from. Beelzemon Security Control. Beelze Control Blue, or even just its pure variant Purple. It got a new card like Doberman. It's got the blue options to just pop and bounce stuff. It's a really solid control deck. Great pilots can do really good things with it. It's definitely a 1.5 category. Any control deck is just really powerful in all-around shape and form. Cherubimon, just straight up Cherubimon. Yellow Cherubimon helped the deck out, but it doesn't really get anything crazy support good in this set. So, just sitting there. Yellow Purple Ryza. This could have been just Ryzamon, but just falls in the tier 3 category, low end. If I didn't remove tier 4, it probably would have landed in tier 4, but that's just me. Myotismon, definitely tier 3. It just hasn't done anything. It's just not strong enough. This card alone, Daemon or Creepymon. Creepymon Mill is such a unique strategy. It's not even funny. I feel like this deck is going to go things, especially with the ability of having Junimon with Magna Kidmon, Avenge Kidmon, I mean, being able to cycle back options, punish your opponent, restart board state, and just do things that your opponent just doesn't want you to do. You get to mill them out. Just do a bunch of crazy shenanigans. Just all in all good stuff. Diaboromon definitely has fallen off a bit. It just... Give it time. It'll come back in. I'm going to say this right now. D-Reaper is one of those tier 1 decks. D-Reaper is going to be that gatekeeper into tier 1 for this format. If you can beat, D-Reaper, you're really able to handle the other two. The D-Reaper has 2 variants, a yellow and a black variant. Each one is very nasty paired to each other. I know this should have been the last card to talk about, but I figured talk about D-Reaper right now. Just all in all, good stuff. Golfmon with Titanmon, really solid deck. Being able to OTK another way. Golfmon restands your Titanmon, swing in. You can swing in with your, if you go into our big boy Zwart, just another option. Just all in all, good stuff there. Beelzemon, this deck can definitely check for games. This deck is crazy. It just self-mills itself. And if they don't win on you, you get punished by it. So if you're going in, Beelzemon is just all in. Blaster mode really does do a lot, but you're all in on that deck. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But outside of that, just keep that in mind when you're trying to play it. And then we have Mastamon. Mastamon's just around the corner right here. I think Mastamon just does really good against, Beelzestar. Just all in all, good stuff. I feel like this is solid workmanship here. It doesn't matter. I think this is pretty solid for a tier list. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Should I move stuff? Should I change stuff around? Would love to hear from you. I know this is like 31 decks. It's kind of a big pool of cards, but I feel like this is where things should sit. If you guys have contradictions, let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!